Tsvangirai achaitungamira ega Zimbabwe. Ndizvozotendera napo. Tsvangirai achaitungamira ega Zimbabwe. Ndizvozotendera napo. Mama kupe vachamugadzira nebasa. Ndizvozotendera napo. Mama kupe vachamugadzira nebasa. Ndizvozotendera napo. Tsvangirai achaitungamira ega Zimbabwe. Ndizvozotendera napo. Tsvangirai achaitungamira ega Zimbabwe. Ndizvozotendera napo. Mama kupe vachamugadzira nebasa. Ndizvozotendera napo. Mama kupe vachamugadzira nebasa. Ndizvozotendera napo. Vamugabelo chanda tungamira mandongi kwacho. Vamugabelo chanda tungamira mandongi kwacho. Mai muchuru vachanda tungamira mamuko emukombo. Mai muchuru vachanda tungamira mamuko emukombo. Johnny Nkomo uzako kela katungela kateni. Johnny Nkomo uzako kela katungela kateni. Toraila katani, toraila katani, toraila katani, toraila katani, toraila katani, toraila katani, romba toraila katani, romba toraila katani. Tsvangirai achaitungamira ega Zimbabwe. Ndizvozotendera napo. Tsvangirai achaitungamira ega Zimbabwe. Ndizvozotendera napo. Mama kupe vachamugadzira nebasa. Ndizvozotendera napo. Mama kupe vachamugadzira nebasa. Ndizvozotendera napo. Tsvangirai achaitungamira ega Zimbabwe. Ndizvozotendera napo. Tsvangirai achaitungamira ega Zimbabwe. Ndizvozotendera napo. Mama kupe vachamugadzira nebasa. Ndizvozotendera napo. Mama kupe vachamugadzira nebasa. Ndizvozotendera napo.
I think the biggest sacrifice has been the loss of my wife, my grandson, but I also knew that those who have died for this struggle would have wanted me to continue to achieve the goal we set out to achieve, which is dignity, prosperity, and security for the people of Zimbabwe. So yes, at a personal level, it was a great loss. There were moments in this long journey where I've lost an organizer, I've lost people who were desperately looking for some salvation, people coming to our head office in their thousands, victims of violence. So those were also moments of great pain, because the burden of responsibility lied with me. What we do to all those people who were desperate and looking for salvation, looking for solutions.
Maskurase Murie Zimbabwe. Just a few minutes to honor the icon of democracy, Dr. Morgan Richard Tsvangirai. We're coming to you live on Zimbabwe Daily. Just send in your message as we remember the icon, Dr. Morgan Richard Tsvangirai. What do you remember the most about the man who was loved and hated on our Zimbabwean political landscape? Anzi Gandangari Neliva na Dread Reckless and Sister Fearless. Kandai my love Nema likes as we remember the icon, the late doyen of democracy, Dr. Morgan Richard Tsvangirai.
It was not there and imminent. There were moments where we felt we were helpless. Because remember that our struggle has been a peaceful struggle. It is not about armed conflict. So we were faced to confront people who were using violence as an instrument. And we were using nothing but the will of the people. I think to me I sort of shelved my own personal risk because I knew that there were so many people who were risking their lives for this democratic change. Some of whom had already died as a result. So I sort of suppressed my own personal fear and my own personal security.
Not easy to say.
Very difficult. Sometimes some of your closed ones in your family start questioning whether it is worth it. They start questioning whether you have not done enough already, that is it worth it to go all the way.
nyika yose vakatora pamadiro asi vakuhana vachaopa nyika yose vakatora pamadiro nyika yose vakatora pamadiro asi chanda chabuda nyika yose vakatora pamadiro asi chanda chabuda tirirai 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 zvitoro zvedu kutora pamadiro mitengo nhasi vanokuta pamadiro zvitoro zvevakatora pamadiro mitengo nhasi vanokuta pavanodira tirirai 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 vayadziva vakakuta pamadiro vachitivo vari pakuramba vayadziva vakakuta pamadiro vachitivo kuramba chinazvo vayadziva vakakuta pamadiro vachitivo kuramba chinazvo Korea vanhu vakaurawa madiro vachitivo ekukura uizvo Korea vanhu vakaurawa madiro vachitivo ekukura uizvo nhasi unoderera ndinochema nevarwerewo vanochema nhasi unoderera ndinochema neukamazve vanochema yererai gangora vana
kwanzi tereraivo ndibaba Paul Madzore vachitipa chimbo paalbum ravo rechirangano part 2. Today we just want to commemorate the life of a legend, the life of an icon, Dr. Morgan Richard Tsvangirai, who gave his all for the struggle of democracy in our country. Timbotiudzayo zvamunoziva nezva Morgan Tsvangirai. Tell us a little bit that you know about Morgan Tsvangirai, and let's have this time to just commemorate this day. We're going to have more programs coming up in the coming week as we remember the legend.
Change is not for Robert Mugabe, the change is for the people of Zimbabwe.
Nai baba ere, siri bachiranga do. Sikatora kuatana, nai baba ere, siri bachiranga do. Chero mukabo base baba, nai baba ere, siri bachiranga do. Baba, baba siri bachiranga do. Chero mukabo base baba, nai baba ere baba, baba. Sikatora kuatana, nai baba ere, siri bachiranga do. Sikatora kuatana, nai baba ere, siri bachiranga do.
Ndiba wapo madzore Kwanzi tiripa chirangano, uripapi, where are you right now as we celebrate the life of an icon? Makomborero, we had him for 65 years and he led a very brave resistance campaign against the ZANU-PF government at a time when it was considered taboo to stand up against anybody in leadership. So we celebrate the life of an icon. Tell us what you know about Morgan Tsvangirai. We're coming to you live on Zimbabwe Daily.
And I've responded by saying there are already people who have sacrificed anyway.
Yes.
And that one more human being is not going to make a difference. But if my death is going to cause the change that we are looking for, then perhaps it's worth it.
Mamonza Tsvangirai chipindura vakomana pamba igwara rimwe mayenza naremboja yarira vakomana sero yangu yarira Mamonza Tsvangirai chipindura vakomana pamba igwara rimwe mayenza naremboja yarira vakomana sero yangu yarira Mamonza Tsvangirai chipindura vakomana pamba igwara rimwe chatai pambana chasara chatai pambana mutetwa chatai pambana machirita tai pamba tichimira tai pamba tichibvunza Tsvangirai totora gwara ripi chatai pambana chasara chatai pambana mutetwa chatai pambana machirita tai pamba tichimira tai pamba tichibvunza Tsvangirai totora gwara ripi wainza Tsvangirai chipindura wainza Tsvangirai chipindura wainza Tsvangirai chipindura vakomana pamba igwara rimwe wainza Tsvangirai chipindura wainza Tsvangirai chipindura wainza Tsvangirai chipindura vakomana pamba igwara rimwe Jobo wakatetereka chaibva kazara musango chimbaira honai wakaenda chikonzero ndiko kusateerera Jobo wakatetereka chaibva kazara musango chimbaira honai wakaenda chikonzero ndiko kusateerera wainza Tsvangirai chitaura wainza Tsvangirai chitaura wainza Tsvangirai chitaura vakomana pamba igwara rimwe wainza Tsvangirai chitaura wainza Tsvangirai chitaura wainza Tsvangirai chitaura vakomana pamba igwara rimwe wainza Tsvangirai chitaura wainza Tsvangirai chitaura wainza Tsvangirai chitaura vakomana pamba igwara rimwe makwavara rakatengwa naiye ndota akatengwa vakatengwa nachombo Navala Katembo, Naieno Takatembo, Vakatengwa na chombo, kuti vauraye musangano. Mainza changia chitaura, nakusaka changia itaura. Mainza changia itaura, vakomana kambai gwara rimwe. Mainza changia itaura, nakusaka changia itaura. Mainza changia itaura, vakomana kambai gwara rimwe. Arare mudhuri wakaenda, chitungwiza shoko wakaenda, chekutuya kama wakaenda. Kagura kazama mutare, namechinja wakaenda, kukonzera nemunhu mumwe chete. Arare mudhuri wakaenda, chitungwiza shoko wakaenda, chekutuya kama wakaenda. Kagura kazama mutare, namechinja wakaenda, kukonzera nemunhu mumwe chete. Wainza changia chitaura, mainza changia chitaura, mainza changia chitaura. Vakomana kambai gwara rimwe, mainza changia chitaura, nakusaka changia itaura. Mainza changia chitaura, vakomana kambai gwara rimwe. Mainza zimbo chayarira, vakomana sero yangu yarira. Mamunza changia chipindura, vakomana kambai gwara rimwe. Mainza narembo chayarira, vakomana sero yangu yarira. Mamunza changia chipindura, vakomana kambai gwara rimwe. Mainza changia chitaura, mainza changia chitaura, mainza changia chitaura. Vakomana kambai gwara rimwe. Mainza changia chitaura, nakusaka changia chitaura. Mainza changia chitaura, vakomana kambai gwara rimwe. Mainza zimbo chayarira.
Kwanza na Dread Reckless famba igwara rimwe. I wonder what Morgan Tsvangirai would be saying had he been alive right now with all the divisions in the movement for democratic change. We are coming to you live from our Zimbabwe Daily Studios.
Hello President, ndinambofona angachibvunza tutora gwara ripi, mavita yenyu save, mavita yenyu Tsvangirai. Mainza narembo chayarira, mainza sero yangu yarira. Mamunza Tsvangirai chipindura, vakomana famba igwara rimwe. Mainza narembo chayarira, vakomana sero yangu yarira. Mamunza Tsvangirai chipindura, vakomana famba igwara rimwe. Mainza narembo chayarira, vakomana sero yangu yarira. Mamunza Tsvangirai chipindura, vakomana famba igwara rimwe. Chatai famba na chasa, chatai famba na muteto, chatai famba na machiridza, chatai famba tichimira, chatai famba tichibvunza. Tsvangirai totora gwara ripi, chatai famba na chasara, chatai famba na muteto, chatai famba na machiridza, chatai famba tichimira, chatai famba tichibvunza. Tsvangirai totora gwara ripi, wainza Tsvangirai chipindura, wainza Tsvangirai chipindura, wainza Tsvangirai chipindura. Vakomana famba igwara.
Morgan Richard Tsvangirai was a luminary politician, a doyen of democracy and an icon of love, peace, service and sacrifice. The leader of the MDC, a trade unionist and a prime minister of Zimbabwe at some point. President Tsvangirai cannot be ignored in Zimbabwe's history.
Gamakono zvirambe zvakadaro chikara chezanu.
If I were Morgan Tsvangirai and I was looking at this diverse crowd, I would say to myself, this speaks to my character. This speaks to the great legacy that I have left for the people in the country that I so much loved. I think Morgan Tsvangirai would have been happy. You realize that in his forthcoming book that we are writing together, Service and Sacrifice, if you read chapter 2 of that book, he says in that book, and he's referring to the funeral of Susan Tsvangirai, and he says, and I quote, Even if I were to meet my maker, I don't think at my funeral there would be such a huge crowd as the diverse crowd that attended the funeral of Susan Tsvangirai. Close quote. I think that in his assessment of the kind of funeral that was going to be his funeral, he was wrong. Because at his funeral, he actually went on to treble the number of mourners who actually gathered at Susan Tsvangirai. He never thought that he was going to have such a grand funeral. He never thought that he was going to surpass the funeral of Susan Tsvangirai. But what we saw in Buhera in February of 2018 was something else. I think we saw a huge crowd. We saw the nature, the global nature of his appeal. I think it was very clear to everyone who was there that we are talking here about a towering brand that touches the hearts and souls of a diverse group of people.
He struck me as a very simple person, one who lived as he led and led as he lived. He struck me as a person who knew what needed to be done. He was very clear on what he had gotten wrong in the country.
He's very arrogant. To some degree, he's very intolerant to opposition and to any alternative views. He likes loyalty. He likes to be worshipped. I think that is the reason why a lot of his ministers have turned into sycophants. People who just sing praise, they don't ever give him critical analysis.
Any rational Zimbabwean will realize that Mugabe is acting as a lone ranger. I think he's just sidelined his cabinet. Parliament has been dissolved, so he's acting alone.
I've been explaining to the president that Zimbabwe is coming out of a political conflict and economic collapse or decay, and that the new political dispensation we have crafted is an attempt to arrest this decay.
If you want this inclusive government to deliver hope to the people of Zimbabwe, then you must regard the MDC as an equal partner, not as a junior partner. We are not a junior partner when we have got the mandate of the people.
Political parties but the objective iripo ndeyekuti ZANU-PF political governance must come to an end.
We cannot abandon the issue of reforms. Electoral reforms are important for a free, fair, and credible election.
It was very easy working with Morgan Tsvangirai. You were working with a normal human being. A mortal human being, fine, but a normal human being who would regard you as a normal human being, would take into consideration your own feelings. He would actually tell you the very facts, the actual facts, and then you tell you even if you want to give a spin, it is up to you, you can give whatever spin you want to give. But what has happened in this particular case is this and this and this and this. You would actually give a blow by blow account, like a client who is telling his lawyer what has happened. That was the nature of my relationship with him. He will tell you the exact story and the exact position and this actual feeling, and he will say to you, whatever spin you want to give it, I don't care, but this is my actual position. So he was very honest and forthright. He was a man, I don't think there will be any other. I don't think there will ever be any other Morgan Tsvangirai.
At musi wa 27 chinodziregedza ndo chiri mumaoko haikota chiri mumwoyo.
They are being intimidated.
Oh yeah. The situation has not been normal for us in the MDC. We faced so many obstacles. As I speak, all the rallies have been banned. We have had to improvise in terms of how we access the people. And it's a very hostile environment.
The incident with the police yesterday, what do you think of that?
Well, it's all part of the ongoing harassment. There was an allegation that we addressed in an illegal meeting,
And I don't know how you define an illegal meeting in a campaign. I assume they were under instructions. But if they were not, then it also means that some of the police officers are compromising their professionalism and behaving in a partisan way, and especially in a disrespectful way, in which the leading candidate is being treated like a common criminal.
Now, for me, I identified with him. I also grew up in the rural areas and came to town. And finding a person in the mold of Morgan Tsvangirai really made us at ease in terms of prosecuting the business of this drug. He was simple, he had a strong rural background, so there are so many areas where we could connect, and I miss that about him greatly. The peasant nature of engaging in a revolution. I miss that.
Violence. We condemn violence unreservedly, atini violence, because some of us we've lost loved ones, some of us we endured unnecessary violence against us. But pano tiri kuda kuti taure kuti kazhinji chinonyanya kuita ndichokuti vana mufundisi isu vamwe we have refused to accept to be captive to the spirit of revenge. We have refused to be captive to the spirit of being captive to permanent hatred.
What is amazing, when he was still in neck braces and his eyes were bloodshot, they raided Harvest House and arrested members of staff, including Sebetia Juaba, Luke Tamborenyuka, myself, Melody was there, and all the people who were there. Party secretariat and the party activists who happened to be here with him. But what was most striking for me was when they were raiding Harvest House, they started to assault us. They were pointing guns at us, and Morgan, because he was here, he walked into the office of the Secretary General, only to realize that these guys were brutalizing me in particular. And it was so touching. He asked them, why are you beating him? He doesn't know anything. If you have questions, ask me. If you have to beat someone, then go on. After all, you have done this already to me. I thought that was very touching. It spoke to a person who was prepared to accept the suffering on our behalf. And at that moment, I felt so encouraged. This was the president of the party wanting to be beaten on my behalf. And it said a lot about it.
The last discussion that we had, they were saying that, you know what, look, because we wanted to make service and sacrifice, we thought it was going to be a campaign to go ahead with the 2018 election. But in my last discussion with him, he said, you know what, I think we must change the thrust of that. It must be a valediction. It must be some kind of farewell. And when he said that to me, I thought he was feeling it within him, that he was not going to come back. And I had to urge him on and say, no, President, you'll be back, and say, no, we have to change the thrust of that. Our initial thrust was to make it about service and sacrifice, about the huge contribution that we made in the inclusive government. But he said, no, let's change it into a valediction. Let's change it into a farewell peace to the people of Zimbabwe. And that is exactly what we have done. So when he was in South Africa, I actually felt, he actually knew within him, he was feeling it within him, that he was not going to come back alive. I served Morgan Tsvangirai lawyer until his death. And I was truthful to him, and I was truthful to his legacy.
Iri ronda rinovava muwana, maenda isu takangomirira mukana, ndiyo inzira yedu, ndiyo inzira yedu, vanomuziva vanotirai vakamba nekuda kwekupfira muri kushandawo pamusha. Aiwa 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 matibaya panyama netesave hatijaziva pekubata patave. Famba zvakanaka mukuru wangu, matibaya panyama netesave hatijaziva pekubata patave. Famba zvakanaka mukuru wangu.
Save waenda waeretwa, save waenda waeretwa.
Tichavamba naniko,
save waenda
naniko
waeretwa.
Wendo kuya kwakuba,
save waenda
kubara kukwira vana
waeretwa.
Tichavamba naniko,
save waenda
naniko
waeretwa.
wendo kuya kwakuba,
save waenda
kubara kukwira vana